DraftKings NBA DFS core plays for Game 1 of the NBA Finals and massive contests out there in the DraftKings lobby. So let's get to the slate, looking at the projections, ownership, and then some of the players that the Sims are getting me the most exposure to. And starting here with the player projections, SGA projected for the most fantasy points. We all knew that. But now the real question is, what is the gap between him and everybody else on the slate? And we've got SGA projected for 56 fantasy points. Then you got Halliburton at 42 fantasy points, Jalen Williams at 41.6 fantasy points. So you're looking at a 14 fantasy point gap between SGA and the second highest projected player in Tyrese Halliburton. That also comes with a $1,200 difference in the flex spot in terms of salary. The next highest projected players, Chet Holmgren, 36.7 fantasy points, Pascal Siakam, 36.2 fantasy points. Not a single other player are projected for 30 plus fantasy points in our projections. If we look at the captain spot and the ownership going over there, a lot of it's going to SGA. SGA pulling 43% ownership, although per our data and Sims, seems like it's warranted because my top 150 lineups do have 53% of SGA. Other players pulling ownership in the captain spot, 15% to Jalen Williams, 10% to Tyrese Halliburton, and 9% to Chet Holmgren. He is the one player here that the Sims are going to be the most overweight to as a player with somewhat lower ownership at 9%. 15% of my top lineups to have Chet Holmgren in the captain spot. If we go ahead and look at the flex ownership here, the most popular flex options, Jalen Williams, SGA, Aaron Wiggins for value, Tyrese Halliburton, as well as Chet Holmgren. And now if we look at the exposures from the Sims, these are the players who I'm getting the most of in the flex spot. Aaron Wiggins to save salary. He's showing up in a little bit more than half my lineups, as is Chet Holmgren at $8,800, 51% of my lineups containing him in the flex spot. Then we've also got Jalen Williams and Pascal Siakam rounding out the other players in the flex for at least 40% of lineups. If you find this content helpful, like the video and subscribe to the channel.